Hi guys, welcome to my channel, my basically semi-annual videos at this point. Thank you to everyone who has stayed subscribed this whole time, or to any new subscribers. Again, if anyone has any suggestions for topics they'd be interested in hearing about, let me know. I'd probably be a little more motivated and inspired to upload more often if I have kind of a rough idea of what people are interested in. But today's video is a topic that I have been meaning to talk about for a while, and part of the reason that I am making a video on this topic is I have now officially launched my integration services. So if that's something you might be interested in, my link will be in the description down below. And in addition to integration services, I'm also going to have different resources on there. It's still very much in the works, but I am planning to have one-on-one integration sessions as well as group Zoom meetings. Those I'm planning to have for free. I want to have fun quizzes and different informational pieces on there too, so that it can be a full-on resource. But anyways, that link is there if you do want to go look at it. For this video, I want to provide some information for people who maybe want to go through this integration process on their own, or they are helping someone else with the integration process. I think this information should be readily available for everyone. In today's video, I'm going to specifically focus on difficult or challenging trips, because those are probably what would come up the most when thinking of integration, although there really should be concerted efforts to integrate any type of experience, whether it's amazing, good, neutral, but challenging experiences might be the ones that people want the most guidance on how to integrate something that might have been really terrifying or made no sense at all. In recent years, there's been a shift away from calling some difficult experiences bad trips, and I do understand that, because there is a notion where, you know, sometimes bad trips, there are lessons in them, and just because there is a challenge doesn't mean that you can't take something out of it. And while I do agree with that perspective, I also think it can be a little condescending to say, oh, bad trips don't exist, because sometimes they do happen. Sometimes you have a completely terrifying journey and it's almost impossible to make sense out of it, and it's almost offensive that people are like, oh, well, I'm sure you can interpret something out of that. Sometimes trips really are just bad, and I think it is okay for us to say that we've had a bad trip. I think if we're not comfortable with talking about all sides of the psychedelic journeys, whether it be dark or scary, we're kind of letting toxic positivity come into the psychedelic space, which is definitely happening. I think especially because there is such a push to change legislation and the public opinion on it, we almost are like scared to say anything bad about it. But it's important that we're honest about the full scope of everything. So you just had a very difficult experience. Maybe it was a low dose, maybe it was a high dose, maybe you were at home by yourself, maybe you were at a retreat. Whatever it is, I think the first thing that you should do is get a journal. Maybe even if you need to write it down on your phone, just take note of every single thing that you remember from beginning to end, including also how you consumed the substance, maybe the actions and feelings leading up to it. Really get everything in as much detail as possible. But then the next step is maybe what people might not expect, and that's completely close that note and forget it. Push it aside. Push it out of your mental space. And I know that's easier said than done, especially when it was something so jarring. You really can't just stop thinking about it. But try the best you can to return to your normal life, your normal activities. So if possible, reach out to the people that you normally spend time with. You might not want to go back to work with full force right away. Obviously, ease back into things, but do a lot of grounding work. So whether that's like yoga, taking walks in the park, really reconnect with earth and your surroundings to help ground yourself. You might not be in the afterglow mood that you typically get with very amazing experiences, but try to still use this window to perceive things in a new light. So whether it's certain songs that you listened to before, listen to it again and approach things with a kind of mindful state where you're really letting your thoughts go in and out and being aware of them. Regardless of how the experience itself went, this is a period in time where you can kind of change your thought processes or behaviors, and this will be a little bit more challenging as it's going to require more effort if the positive thoughts aren't just flowing into you naturally, but it is an opportunity for you to introduce those. There isn't really a set amount of time that you should take between the experience and when you do start to integrate it again. There is some interesting research done on mice, not on humans, but about how long the social relearning period lasts after consuming a substance. And this, what is called a critical period, is usually dependent on the duration of the psychedelic experience itself. So like the window for ayahuasca is going to be a lot longer than it is for psilocybin. But regardless, whatever the actual critical period is for these neural alterations that are taking place, I think what is more important is how you're feeling emotionally and psychologically. If you're feeling a lot more stable and you've been able to emotionally distance yourself a bit from the experience, then I think you are ready to go back and try to find some meaning or interpretation in what you experienced. So after this period of what could be a week, a month, several months later, go back to that journal entry where you detailed everything. You might find that in this time of separation, you will reread it and have these newfound insights of, oh, this applies to how I react to this in life, or what I saw there was a symbol for what happened to me when I was younger, something of the sorts. But I will also say, if a meaning or interpretation isn't blatantly obvious, don't overfixate on trying to create meaning there. This can sometimes lead to delusions or just agony of trying to understand something that just might not make sense. This is why having integration coaches or integration group circles is really helpful. It helps us kind of have some unbiased perspectives or talk through things. Sometimes just talking through something out loud helps us release it or be able to see it in a completely different way. And also when you share it with others, you'll realize that what you've gone through might not be that strange. It might be a very common experience that many people have encountered at some point. Obviously, this is not meant to be like self-promotion. Like, that's why you need to have me as your integration coach. I think just like having a therapist, it's really about the dynamic that you have with that person. Do you feel comfortable sharing? Do they ask the right questions that make you think about things in a different way? So many integration coaches will have consultation sessions where you can see if they are the right fit for you. And many integration circles, group sharings are typically free. You can maybe find it in your local community depending where you live. Otherwise, there's online Zoom calls for these as well. So really do try to find other people to share it with once you are ready to go back and integrate and work on that experience. I'm sure some of you may be thinking that the advice I've given you here seems a little counterintuitive, or just impossible to get your mind off of something when it is eating at you. When something is so troublesome, shouldn't you try to work through it? And I totally get that. The point is not to repress feelings, it's just to allow yourself time to not ruminate and get attached to those, especially when your brain is in a plastic state. You don't want to harden those connections even more. You really want to distance yourself and allow any positive opportunities to come in during that time, and then you're going to readdress it at a later point. It's not that you're going to completely neglect what happened. You just need to create a more stable ground for you to be able to address whatever bad or difficult feelings or images came up. The reason I wanted to start my integration services, as well as make this video for the information to be out there for anyone to use themselves, is because I have been through some experiences myself, particularly one retreat that I went to in Mexico, which if you've been following me for some time, you will know how I felt towards that place, where they provided no psychological support at all, no preparation, no integration. You just go in a teepee with a stranger and consume one of the most profound substances in the entire world, 5-MeO-DMT, and then they'll just leave you. And that is really, really unsafe. And even having a scientific background in this field and close to 10 years of experiences with personal journeying, I found myself really destabilized after that. And so I just imagine for people who might not have the same amount of knowledge, maybe it was their first time going through a psychedelic experience, if they don't have the proper support afterwards, it can be very scarring. I hope if you have recently had a not so great experience that you have found some of the information in this video useful. And again, know that there are services out there. There are people you can talk to. If you do want to check out my site and you find that it's cost prohibitive or anything, just let me know. I am happy to help in whatever way I can. In a future video, I will be talking about how to integrate other experiences as well, great ones, neutral ones, because even though those are a little more straightforward, there's a lot you can take out of those also. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.